Wait, nothing yet.
I might need these.
You are,
After the governor.
yeah, where is,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got it? Oh,
I got the chair.
It was easy.
Of course, when everybody comes up to speak, that's what I'm saying.
good morning. Hello, my name is Colette Payne, the director of the Reclamation Project of the Women's Justice Institute. On behalf of our team, I am so very honored to welcome Governor Pritzker, First Lady M.K. Pritzker, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, Secretary of State Alexi Giulianis, so many of her friends and colleagues to the Women's Justice Institute's Reclamation Center to celebrate the passage of this important legislation. As you all can see, the center is a very special place. It is the first arts and advocacy, mutual support, and national training center of its kind, led by and for formerly incarcerated women. Together, we collaborate to reclaim the false narratives that fuel women's mass incarceration in our lives. Hundreds of our sisters flow through these doors each year seeking support with their reentry and healing journeys. And many others come together in this space to collaborate on ways to transform systems and to change the harmful policies that uniquely impact system-impacted women. Throughout our space, you will notice these words in many places. See us, hear us, believe us, free us. This is because women have been historically the fastest growing prison and jail population in the nation, yet the most overlooked and invisible when it has come to investing in our unique needs and including our voices at policy-making tables. It is also a reminder that freedom does not begin and end at the prison door. Freedom also means freedom from barriers that women face before, during, and after incarceration. I can tell you firsthand that obtaining a state ID is one of those critical barriers for women coming home because it creates considerable challenges with employment, housing, and more. And the worst thing about these kinds of barriers is that women are punished for surviving when we cannot overcome them. For example, when a woman with an X on her back can't get work, housing, or care for her family, she is at increased risk for reincarceration, being trapped in an abusive housing situation, losing her children to the child welfare system, or even worse, all of the above. It is for those reasons and more that we are incredibly grateful to our governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and bill sponsors for their leadership on SB 8203. This legislation will have a positive impact on the women we serve by removing critical barriers and opening new avenues to obtain a state ID more quickly upon release from juvenile facilities, jails, and prisons. However, I also want to share a heartfelt and very special thank you from the entire WJI family to the First Lady, M.K. Pritzker. Where's she? There she is. For the past several years, First Lady M.K. Pritzker has made it her mission to address women's mass incarceration in nationally significant ways. This has included spearheading a holistic set of solutions on the state ID issue. And let me add that I don't think this state or anywhere in this country has ever had a first lady that has fought with and for impacted women like MK. She has brought impacted women to tables where we previously hadn't been offered a seat, and centered women in policy solutions where we had been overlooked for so long. MK repeatedly walked the housing units of Cook County Jail and prisons statewide to conduct listening sessions with women on their challenges and suggestions. From the moment she learned about the state ID issue, she doubled down on solutions. She leveraged the power of her office and her top staff, like the incredible Zareen Khan. Where are you, Zareen? To rally multiple state agencies around a coordinated plan of action that began with a successful demonstration project at the state's largest women's prison. This project was so successful that it is now being implemented statewide. Because of these efforts, more women than ever are getting the help that they need to obtain a state ID. And SB 2803 will only build upon that success. With that, I want to say thank you, MK. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for believing us. And thank you for freeing us from one more barrier to reclamation. It is my honor to introduce you, First Lady MK Pritzker.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for joining us here today, and thank you, Colette, my friend, for that very kind introduction and those extremely kind words. I'm so excited to be here among all of my friends here at the Women's Justice Institute, and we really have become friends over the years. In January of 2019, just after JB was sworn in for his first term as governor, I made my first visit out of more than a dozen to date to the correctional institutions that house women who are incarcerated in the state of Illinois. During these visits, I heard directly from women we incarcerate, and I learned about their backgrounds. I found that many of society's stereotypes of incarcerated women are just not true. Less than 2% of women in prison are incarcerated for violent offenses. 98% of women incarcerated have suffered some sort of abuse. 98%. Most continue to suffer trauma-induced mental health issues while incarcerated. Many suffer additional challenges that continue to go unaddressed. Most have faced insurmountable economic hardships. These hardships not only have shaped the trajectory of their lives, but also, because they are heads of household, the lives of their families. My focus since that first visit in January 2019 has been on ensuring incarcerated Illinoisans are treated with respect and dignity, and that they are given a real opportunity to rehabilitate and return to post-incarceration life with a chance at avoiding recidivism and making positive change. But I found that upon release, most didn't even have an ID. Having legal identification is a first step in all of the many essential processes a formerly incarcerated person must complete to be successful as they return to their community. Having legal identification says, I am here, I am somebody, and I am a returning citizen choosing to participate in civil society. In 2021, we rolled out a state ID pilot program for returning women at Logan, which was a tremendous success. It grew into a statewide initiative that influenced the bill the governor is signing here today. I am so proud of this work, and I'm grateful to all of my partners. Today, I would like to recognize former Illinois Secretary of State Jesse White, without whose tireless work and partnership, none of this would have been possible. During his 24 years in office, Secretary White was a tireless advocate for making identification accessible for Illinoisans most in need. I'm thankful for his decades of service and his work on this issue. He has dedicated his life to helping others. His impact on our state is immeasurable. Our state owes Jesse White a debt of gratitude. I would also like to thank the Women's Justice Institute for their commitment to the women of our state who interface with Illinois justice system and for their advocacy and partnership. I'm especially grateful to Deanne Benos, who is an amazing leader and partner in this work. Also, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, who has always been a leader for criminal justice reform and an inspiration to me personally on this subject. Thank you, too, to the Department of Corrections and the Illinois Department of Public Health for facilitating the state ID program. Finally, I would also like to thank my staff who worked so hard on the creation of the pilot program, Adolfo Hernandez, Zareen Khan, and Willette Benford, without whose work the state ID program for returning residents would not be a reality today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce another person whose commitment to our state inspires me every day, my husband, Governor J.B. Pritzker.
Now I got lipstick. Okay. It's not a bad mark, I have to say. Good morning. Thank you all of you, really, for joining us today. It's so meaningful to have a full room of people who genuinely care about this subject and about lifting up people who are formerly incarcerated. I'm very proud to be here at the Women's Justice Institute, advancing yet another measure for fairness and sensible public policy in our criminal justice system. Getting introduced by the First Lady today feels a lot like, well, we got the program reversed. I should be introducing her. The bill I'm signing today has been a project that she has been fighting for since long ago, and she is the one who first made me aware of the need for state IDs for returning citizens. MK has consistently stood up for, well, compassion and reason in the making of public policy, especially around those who are formerly incarcerated. And I'm very proud to be standing with her to deliver on that work. She has a heart of gold and is a powerhouse who quietly does what's right in every situation. So many others have served as partners in getting to today. Secretary of State Alexi Giannoulias and his staff, I want to thank you for all of your hard work in helping to ask the General Assembly to carry this bill forward. I also want to especially mention, as MK did, our former Secretary of State, Jesse White. He's a hero to many of us. He's a true statesman and, of course, so much involved in the beginnings of this program. Of course, our leaders at the Department of Corrections and the criminal justice reform champions in the General Assembly, some of whom are behind me here today, who led this effort, especially our bill sponsors, Senator Chris Belt and Representative Justin Slaughter. I also want to recognize the anti-violence leaders who are with us today, especially our friend Arnie Duncan and all of those who every day do their best to try to reduce violence on our streets and make sure that we're doing everything we can to engage returning citizens in that endeavor of reducing crime, reducing violence, and making our state and our city a better place. With my signature today, we are amending the Illinois Identification Card Act to simplify the process for those leaving the Department of Corrections custody to receive an identification card. Lack of identification is an all too common barrier for returning citizens. At a time when they need the most support to get reestablished in society, the lack of identification often shuts them out. They can't pursue employment opportunities. They can't pursue housing, social services, healthcare. Can't simply open a bank account without ID. These are individuals who have served their time and paid their debt to society. Rather than closing them off to the rest of the world, this legislation is about empowering them to make their own choices about their future, giving them the opportunity and the resources necessary to come back as full, upstanding members of our communities and get themselves on the right path and carry forward with their families. This isn't just about fairness and justice. Study after study also tells us that when formerly incarcerated individuals have access to these resources, jobs, housing, healthcare, recidivism rates go down significantly, and our communities are safer for it. Throughout my time as governor, the General Assembly and I have vigorously pursued common sense, humane criminal justice policies that advance our mission to rehabilitate and assist in the reentry of the formerly incarcerated. It's the right thing to do for justice and for public safety. I'm proud to be taking another step forward in that pursuit, and I look forward to continuing our work to build stronger, safer communities. And with that, it is my pleasure, my honor, to pass it over to our injured but always resilient Secretary of State, Alexi Giannoulias.
Sorry, I'm going a little slow. Thank you, Governor. Thank you all for being here. It's great to see members of the media that are very excited about reducing recidivism. Thank you for making time to be here. I mean that. And before I thank the elected officials, I do want to take a second, as the governor mentioned, to thank the leaders in the community who do real work every single day. We see it. You help the people who are trying to re-enter society. Give them a shot. You give them hope. You give them a hug. The governor mentioned Arnie Duncan, who's like a mentor to me, the work that he does with Chicago Cred every single day with some of our most volatile and in-need people, young men and women. So thank you to everyone here. I want to thank the elected officials, obviously. You know, we get all the glory and get the fancy pens, but all of you do the real work, and I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart for all you do for the state of Illinois. Thank you. I also want to thank my good friend, Juliana Stratton, who's a terrific lieutenant governor, who's a great personal friend of mine. Thank you for your work on this issue and so much else. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank Senator Belt and Representative Slaughter, our two sponsors, as well as my good friend, Senator Peters, for working with our office and for being champions on this significant piece of legislation. I also want to thank the other co-sponsors, Senator Mary Edley Allen, Maddie Hunter, Julie Morrison, Willie Preston, Doris Turner, and Rachel Ventura. We would not be here today if not for their passion and concerted efforts to get this bill passed in Springfield. And a special thank you to my friend Governor Pritzker for taking this action to help reduce recidivism in Illinois and facilitate reentry by expanding our groundbreaking initiative to provide state ID cards to individuals leaving incarceration in prison or jail. I also want to give a special shout out to First Lady M.K. Pritzker, who has been tireless in her efforts, as was mentioned earlier, to assist previously incarcerated individuals. Early on in my administration, she expressed to our office how near and dear to her heart this issue was to her and has continued to be. She has always been a strong champion for those who are trying to get their lives back on track. She has been a staunch advocate for individuals, especially women, impacted by the justice system, and understands the importance and benefits of providing state IDs to help these individuals. So thank you, Madam First Lady. Thank you, Governor. Today's bill signing marks a huge step forward for Illinois in eliminating barriers for individuals seeking to successfully return to their communities. Most of us don't think twice when we're asked to present an ID while we're at a store, bank, or a doctor's office. In a moment's notice, that small plastic card that we pull from our pocket, wallet, or bag gives us immediate access to whatever we need. We use it so often and rely on it so much that we tend to take this privilege for granted. But for those who are leaving jail or prison after serving a period of incarceration, a state ID is absolutely essential to performing the everyday tasks that increase the likelihood of successful reentry back into society. That's because access to everything from a home to a job to a doctor becomes almost impossible without one. When I ran for this office, I heard firsthand countless stories of people who had been counting down the days to their second chance at providing the best possible life for themselves and their families after serving their time. But they struggled to find employment, housing, treatment for addiction, or mental and physical health care solely because they didn't have a valid ID. The crux of the issue was locating the documents they needed, like their birth certificate or physical Social Security card, which are required to prove your identity when applying for a state ID. They expressed frustration with the difficulties they encountered while trying to navigate the system. Many didn't even know where to begin. Many others lacked basic internet access, which prevented them from finding the answers. As one ex-offender told me after he was released, he so badly wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to start a new life. But after leaving one system, he felt stuck in another system that was difficult to understand, halting his progress. Without the support in place to assist him in the process of navigating the bureaucratic red tape, he struggled, and he just gave up. All because he didn't have a small piece of plastic that gave him the opportunity to get a job. Almost 2 years ago, the Secretary of State's office launched a partnership with the Illinois Department of Corrections to issue valid state IDs free of charge to individuals upon the release from the 26 state prisons. The program has been a resounding success. Since the inception of the program, the Secretary of State's office has issued nearly 3,000 free IDs to individuals re-entering society. Earlier this year, we worked with Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart to expand the program, providing the same service to individuals released from the Cook County jail system. We're extremely excited about the strides we've been able to make through these partnerships, but the governor's action today will further expand and bolster the program by making it even easier and even faster for individuals to obtain a state ID upon release. The new law enables individuals to bypass the long wait times and red tape associated with obtaining the identification requirements required to obtain a state ID, which frequently acts as a major obstacle in the process. The Secretary of State's office will now have the authority to waive the requirement for a certified birth certificate as proof of identification and confirmation of date of birth if the person has previously held an Illinois driver's license or ID card. In addition, our office can now waive the requirement for a Social Security card, assuming we can verify a person's Social Security card number directly through the Social Security Administration. This eliminates the need for the physical card, which many incarcerated individuals cannot readily access. Perhaps most importantly, this new law allows for federal correctional facilities based in Illinois and every county in the entire state to participate in the program. I strongly encourage each and every county to participate because fulfilling the small but basic need reduces recidivism, saves taxpayer money, makes our community stronger by disrupting cycles of economic hardship, and shows that we care and are willing to support those that are willing to do the grueling work of turning their lives around. This important legislation builds on our restorative justice initiative, which we've been working hard to implement since day one, and includes funding for Illinois Department of Corrections libraries and helping newly released individuals obtain their driver's license and secure employment. As part of this new initiative, we will begin hosting a series of educational seminars with correctional facilities to help increase awareness and participation in the program. The importance of providing opportunities and lowering barriers for residents to re-entering society cannot be overstated. The passing of the bill today is a profound step in eliminating barriers to re-entry while helping individuals leaving incarceration return to a sense of normalcy. I am extremely proud of this bill, and I'm extremely proud to live in a state like Illinois where we have a governor that truly cares about those that so many in our society have given up on. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to the leaders. And thank you to the governor for signing this bill today. I would like to introduce Mr. Marlon Chamberlain.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marlon Chamberlain, founder and executive director of the Illinois Coalition to End Permanent Punishments, which is a very long name, so we use MPP.org for short. I want to first start with thanking the governor and first lady for their leadership around criminal justice reform, and also want to thank the elected officials that are in the room, but also the community leaders that are in the room that helped influence this piece of legislation. At MPP.org, we are dedicated to ensuring that individuals leaving prison are not just released, but are truly set free, fully free. We work to eliminate what we now call permanent punishments that prevent individuals with arrest and conviction records from fully participating in society. SB 2803 creates a seamless process for individuals to obtain their identification with all the hassle, and it makes it easier to restart their lives. Not saying that the road will be easy, because there are hundreds of permanent punishment laws that await them on the other side. People with arrest and conviction records should not be defined by their past mistakes. Just as none of us are the same persons we were at 5, 10, or 20 years ago, those returning home have changed and deserve a chance to be productive members of society. We all want the same things. We want to be valued, respected for who we are now, and not judged by our past actions. MPP.org recognizes that there is still much work to do to ensure that individuals leaving incarceration are truly free. Our policy initiatives are aimed at creating a new norm where people with arrest and conviction records are set up for success from the beginning, rather than waiting for them to fail and then blaming them for the shortcomings of the system. We believe, and this is an example, this legislation, by working together and changing laws, that we can create opportunities for individuals, which equals community safety. We can create a just and inclusive society for all, and let's continue to push for reform and give every individual the opportunity to thrive after incarceration. And I also just want to say this in closing, it's also important to be careful of the language we use. And we like to use person-first language. So instead of using terminology like ex-offender or inmate, let's use individuals with felony convictions or an individual with a record. Because the way we talk about individuals also influences how we treat them. Thank you. And also I have the privilege of bringing up one of my favorites, the Lieutenant Governor, Julian Stratton. Yeah.
Thank you, Marlon, for sharing your story with us with such generosity. You know, I always say that when it comes to making policy change that helps people's lives get better, we have to listen to the wisdom in the room. And Marlon, you are an example of that wisdom that's in this room. Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, she, her pronouns, and it's wonderful to be back here at the Women's Justice Institute with my sister, Colette Payne, and so many others whose work I admire. I am so grateful to all the hands that touched Senate Bill 2803 as it crossed the finish line. To the best governor and first lady in the nation, Governor and MK Pritzker. Of course, our partners in the General Assembly, Secretary of State Alexi Janulius, former Secretary of State Jesse White, the Illinois Department of Corrections, and the entire team from my office's Justice, Equity, and Opportunity Initiative. Thank you for using your voices and expertise to advocate for stronger, safer communities. And of course, thank you to the Justice League. And who is the Justice League? Well, it's all of you in this room who every day don't just think that we can be better. You do the work to make us better as a society. I appreciate you. Listen, healing communities starts by healing individuals. And early in our administration, Governor Pritzker established the Justice, Equity, and Opportunity Initiative through executive order. And in doing so, he set a new precedent across the state, one that turned Illinois' wheel towards substantive justice and away from punitive punishment. As a restorative justice practitioner, I've always been focused on healing the harm caused by systemic practices and policies. In fact, before I propose any solution, I first ask myself, what would true justice look like? Because the truth is that too many have a limited view of what justice really means. They think it is only what happens before a judge's bench or inside prison walls. But talk to those who've had these experiences, and you'll quickly come to find that true justice is also about having access to what's needed to keep you from cycling in and out of the system. True justice is about having access to what's needed to care for yourselves and your families in productive ways as contributing members to your community. See, the reality is that most people impacted by the criminal legal system will return to their communities. And re-entry is a process that begins on the first day that someone is incarcerated and continues long after their release. Today, we're ensuring that when they step back into that world, they carry the key to unlock a new door, a state ID. When someone re-enters their community after incarceration, the most important things they need, housing, jobs, education, medical attention, all require proof of identity. And by ensuring that people have identification, we're not just simplifying the re-entry process, we're establishing a justice system that recognizes people's personhood. And this is especially important when you consider that Black and brown people are disproportionately represented by the in the carceral system. When they return home, they face disproportionate obstacles to reestablishing themselves. It's almost like another level of punishment, if you will, one that can have generational consequences that only widens racial inequities. Hence Marlon's term, permanent punishment. So it's our job as leaders and advocates to combat recidivism by making sure that the path back to community is free from obstacles. And with the governor's signature on this bill, there's now one less hurdle for people to clear. Today, we can proudly say that in Illinois, we see the person behind their mistake and commit to helping that person re-emerge. And to me, that is true justice. So thank you all for being here. And I'm now so excited to bring back Governor Pritzker, who's going to sign this bill into law.
Good picture of the Secretary of State. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to get out of here. You come this way.
No, you come this way.
Okay.
You got to answer.
Just 1 second here.
Thanks, Governor.
There we go. You bet. Happy to take questions from members of the media. Yes, Isabel.
Sheriff Campbell has defended his hiring of Sonia Massey's killer after calls for him to step down. Should Campbell resign?
Look, what happened to Sonia Massey should never happen to anyone ever again. And honestly, I have seen so much tragedy just over the course of my governorship. Think about George Floyd. Think about Breonna Taylor. Think about the the many names of people, Sonia Massey included, who have been killed in similar circumstances by an officer of the law. We need to hold people accountable. I'm very proud of the work that the Illinois State Police did in investigating this quickly and bringing it to the state's attorney so that the deputy sheriff could be charged, and was charged, in fact, with 3 counts of murder, appropriately so. The way in which this deputy sheriff was hired, the background should have been taken into account. The way he was hired is an enormous question mark that still needs to be made transparent. How did the sheriff end up hiring this person? Must have known their background, must have. I mean, no one hires somebody without checking out the hiree's background. And so I have a lot of questions, and I'm so far disappointed with the answers that I'm hearing from the sheriff. But, I think that the community is reacting the way that I think is appropriate, protesting, making their voice heard, asking for change, the Massey family in particular, thinking about how do we improve the system going forward. And so I stand with them in that effort.
Governor, can I ask you, what was it like to go through the vetting process and your reaction to the choice?
Well, I'm not going to talk about too much about the vetting process, except that it's a grueling, long process. I think even though this was about 14 days or so, there were lots of questions and information and so on that happens in that process. I have to say it was handled with the utmost professionalism. And I was glad that I made it through that process, made it to the final number of candidates. But I have to say that I want to be clear with everybody. You often hear me say, I love being the governor of Illinois. I really do love being the governor of Illinois. And so I was very torn during this process about being a participant in it, not because I don't support Kamala Harris. I do 1,000%, and I will be out there campaigning for her at every turn whenever I have time to do so. But I also, know that this job that I'm doing now, that we're making a big difference today, is just one example. I want to turn around to the members of the General Assembly that are here, Senator Peters, to the Secretary of State, to my wife, to the Lieutenant Governor, to all the elected officials here, and the people who vote for us. I come to work every day knowing that we can make a difference, and we have over the last 5.5 years. And so I continue to come to work with a great deal of joy, and not sorry at all about the fact that we have a terrific Midwestern governor in Tim Walz that's been chosen. And I'm going to go out and support him and the ticket and Kamala Harris every day. I think there are 90 days left as of today in the election, and we have to beat Donald Trump. Yeah. Tina. Not had any of the discussions about electoral future, and then have I talked to? Listen, I at the moment I'm just focused on the job that I've got. Being the chair of the DGA is an enormous amount of time that Tim Walz put into that job. Did a great job, by the way. And in some ways, I'm sorry that we're going to lose him. On the other hand, I'd like him to become the next vice president of the United States.
Could you react to him giving with Governor Walz over the past few years and what
Yeah.
they've been able to do together?
Yeah, so we've been governors the exact same amount of time. We got elected in 2018, and he has done terrific things in Minnesota. Remember that when he came into office, he did not control, or the Democrats didn't control the legislature. But he worked and earned the trust of the people of Minnesota enough to help win over those seats in the legislature, and just since getting reelected in 2022 has accomplished many of the things that I'm proud to say we were able to do in my first term, because we have a great General Assembly and great leaders to work with. So he is a kind and decent human being. Tim Walz cares deeply about the work that he does and every person that he interacts with. And I met him for the first time at the National Governors Association meeting. They do something called the, well, it's euphemistically referred to as Baby Governors School. When we first are elected, the experienced governors meet with the new governors to answer questions, to provide stories and help. He and I met there, and we hit it off immediately. We have each other's cell phone numbers. We talk to each other on a fairly frequent basis. We went through COVID together, and he did an outstanding job. And I just, I'm in many ways, I'm very proud that another governor is now in the spot and helping Kamala Harris win.
Two more questions.
Two?
Have you reached out to Governor Walz, and
Yeah.
what was the conversation like with the Vice President when you had the conversation that you were not in?
Thank you. I reached out this morning to Governor Walz. I've not heard back. You can imagine he's a bit busy today, but I know that I will, because that's just the kind of guy he is. And then I won't characterize everything about the conversation that I had with the Vice President, but I made sure that she knows that I'm 1,000% on board, that I'm going to be out there every day putting my heart and soul into this election to help her win, because we must. Yeah, Sarah.
The Republicans, as you know, they're already on the attack.
Of course.
They're blaming Tim Walz for letting Minnesota burn during George Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. So how will he help the ticket with white suburban voters, especially women?
Well, let's start with the fact that he has been a pro-choice advocate for his entire career, that he has brought school breakfast and lunch to the children of Minnesota, that he has in every way demonstrated that he is trustworthy and a person of integrity, and that's a heck of a lot more than you can say for the vice presidential choice that Donald Trump made.
How many times did you speak either in person or by Zoom with the Vice President? And second question, Senator Joe Lieberman famously said, being vetted is like having a colonoscopy and having anesthesia. Can you offer a little bit of insight into something nobody in this room will likely go through? Give us an anecdote, if you would.
Actually, I saw an interview that was done with somebody who led a vetting process in a previous administration, several previous administrations, might have been on your station. And I think they described it very well. So I'm not going to review that. I'll just say, it's an honor to be considered, and it's a grueling process, but one that, as you may recall, Tammy Duckworth went through back in 2020, and it was months longer than this process. So I think that it's a worthwhile thing, because all of us, and Tammy in particular, I would say, along with me, we know how important this election is. And so, we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we win.
And how many interactions did you have with her, if any, over the last 2 weeks?
With the vice president, several, but again, there are a lot of people in the process, and so I interacted with them and provided whatever information was necessary. And I was, again, I think getting through all the way to the end and having a kind of a last interview at the end was also an honor, because I think, they're along the way, as you can imagine, the decisions get made. And so every time you get a call saying, here's another thing we'd like you to engage in and talk to us about, means that you're still in the process, and that, you're somebody that they value enough to have you around till the very end.
Governor, have you contemplated either with Vice President Harris or just with yourself in your inner circle a cabinet position? Is that
No.
something that you would leave the governorship for?
That is not something I've contemplated. I really do love the job that I have, and remember that we've made a lot of improvements. We have a lot of work to do still for the state of Illinois, but we have made a lot of improvements, and I think every day I try to think about what's the next thing, what's on the list now that we can do to make people's lives better. Today was a great day.
Is there a question you can share with us that you were asked, I don't know, for those of us who might have future job interviews, anything that was a bit stumping?
You're expecting a vice presidential job interview. You might. You're terrific on TV, I might add. Yeah, I can't think of anything that you wouldn't already know, that people might get asked. I think, importantly, I think that the process is one that attempts to weed out, can you be somebody's support mechanism, right, to be the number two? Can you bring another set of advice to the table that's valuable? And I think, you don't get on that list unless they think you actually could be president of the United States and do the job if you had to. So I can't think of a particular question you wouldn't already know gets asked, but again, it's an honor to be asked, even if some of those questions are like a colonoscopy.
The last question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Chicagoans are increasingly concerned about the influx of migrants that are going to be coming to the city around the DNC. So I wanted to talk to you about your plans as far as safety strategies and how to keep the city safe.
Thank you for asking. And as you know, we put in place a strategy many months ago to deal with whatever eventuality might come. I think you'll be pleased to know that the work that the President and the Vice President of the United States have done to stanch the flow of people to the border, and therefore the number of people who come across the border and seek asylum, that has helped a lot in reducing the number of people who end up coming to cities like Chicago. It also reduces the number of people that a very inhumane governor of Texas has available to throw onto buses and send to whatever city he might want to disrupt at any given moment. So I'm pleased to say that we've seen, I think you can see this in an online portal that the city has, and in information that I get regularly about how many people are coming to the city of Chicago, how many are in shelters, and I'm pleased to say that has reduced over time. Meanwhile, we are ready if we see many more coming over the next couple of weeks. And so, who knows what the governor of Texas has in mind, but I'm pleased with the work that's been done, especially over the last several months with the county, with the city, and the state working together.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you.